Hi, I'm Daryl Munro from Beyond the Numbers. Welcome back to our video series. We recently were working with a group and a conversation that started up and got quite a lot of interest was about empowerment. So they were at a stage where the maturity of their group, if you like, had began to grow and confidence was growing and they wanted more empowerment. And so we had a really good discussion about this, and so I'd just like to recap on some things to consider that when we engage teams that have reached a level of maturity in giving them more discretion and more space to operate, in other words, more empowerment, then we probably just need to do that in a managed way. So let's talk about what our concept of that is and why we would suggest a managed approach to it. So we can pretty much guarantee, and from your own experience I'm sure it'll be similar, is that empowerment builds confidence, develops collective capability, we learn what works versus works well, and we also can identify what we can do better. So we continue to grow our knowledge and skill under the environment of an empowered team. However, there are risks. If we don't do this in a controlled manner, the risk is we can actually blow out our team and they reach a point where elements of fragmentation begin to appear in the team, dysfunctions appear, a sense of like I'm doing more than someone else, etc. So to manage that, a leader needs to step up, and so if you're going to create this empowered team, you also need to manage it. So a way of illustrating that is that when we've reached the stage where you're clear that the team are ready to be empowered, what you need to do is define your initial boundaries. So people work best when they have an understanding of where they can go and how far they can go. So in the first instance, you say, right, let's see if we can get this empowerment thing really cooking for our team. Well, let's create this environment, define the boundaries together, and let's go out there and test it together. And just see how we go. So if we get the boundaries about right, then the team will embrace the empowerment and get the successes that come with that sense of autonomy and freedom to be able to do their work. So it's like we reach that stage and then we review and say, how do we go? So maybe a 3 months trial based on that boundary can be a really good way to take stock and review. They're going to reach a few issues and problems along the way. You guide them through, coach them through how they resolve those and move on. So at the end of 3 months, you've said, well, that worked well for everybody. They got a sense of empowerment. They felt more satisfied in their output. So then what we want to do is look at opening the gate, if you like, into the next larger paddock. So you say, based on our success, why don't we stretch those boundaries? And we redefine the boundaries together based on the learnings that came from there. So these are the things we did well, and these are the things we didn't do well. What are we going to do to manage that? So when we open up the boundaries into a bigger empowerment phase, that we do that successfully. And so we extend them out again. So now we're playing in a much larger paddock, so to speak, and we evaluate that after, say, 3 months and discover that, yes, some things went well, not so well. We put a plan in place and we say, well, what do you reckon? Let's open it right up. Now, this is the interesting thing. Our belief is that a fully extended boundary is still a controlled boundary. You don't want people stepping out their lines of authority legally, within the constraints of the organisation, etc. It has to be managed. My experience in empowering a team is they want to go out and solve world hunger. So they can see that other groups, other functional groups that they're interacting with are often the boundary on itself. They're not getting the right response from that group, so they want to go out there and solve that group's problems, which can create a lot of drama inside an organisation when you don't seek permission first. So let's understand that process and how we have to guide as leaders them through this. So, okay, so we open up the gate again, but while it's for a more fully extended boundary, it still does have defined boundaries around that it's not like an open field. You just haven't opened the gate and just said, right, go for it. You're doing it still within a controlled environment. But as you can see, it's exponentially bigger than where you started off. Because remember, back here, they probably thought that was quite a large boundary to start with. But in the end, as they progress and learn together, supported by you as the leader, they're now in a much bigger area, usually knocking out significantly more work and seeming to do it effortlessly because they now formed that real synergies that come from a team that's tasted success. So this knowing when to pause and review and learn, when to open the gates as you go through this process is a learning and an important role of the leader. So we talk about empowerment within boundaries, and that will lead to successes so that the controlled empowerment will build their confidence, will develop that collective capability where they manage, self-manage, and they manage each other. And then we learn to identify and look for the things that are not working or working well versus what's not working well. And then we start to decide how can we get these things that we've identified into the plan so when we extend the boundaries out, we've got strategies to manage that and get the right outcomes. So empowerment's awesome. It's the, how would you say, the powerhouse of effective teams, high-performing teams. The caution is do it in a managed strategy. So we wish you well with that and we look forward to your successes.